Yo, que vuelta. Question, Asher. Torah question. Not Torah, but Judaism question. How are Jews to live? I'm coming to a position in my head where I'm thinking Jews should be apart from the world, having this new world view and seeing how little we fit in into America, religious Jews, people who aspire to live a Torah life as far as our social values, living with our law and American law at the same time. So I know you're a fan of the idea of Jews living in a heterogeneous society. Why?
Because then there's no point in remaining Jewish.
I'm sorry?
Experiment, the Jewish experiment was created to affect all of humanity. So if a Jew moves to the top of a mountain, then what's the point of there being Jews in the first place? Remember, in the beginning, there weren't Jews. There weren't Israelites or people who accepted Torah or people in this covenant that was actually developed specifically for the Jew to fulfill. Why would we need Jews anymore if they completely disconnect themselves from society? There's no purpose of it. In other words, the Jews were appointed with a purpose, with a task, and that task
Yeah.
was bringing rational, ethical monotheism to the world. And if a Jew doesn't fulfill that task, what do we see God do throughout history? He starts wiping them out, which is why I never understood the religious need for a Jewish state, because who are you protecting Jews from? From God? I mean, that's pretty much what it is. So that's why this climb a mountain and die on it approach is antithetical to Torah.
But everywhere you go in a heterogeneous Western style society, you stand out like a sore thumb. You never kind of fit in if you think about it. We can't go to your weddings. We can't get these. Always some type of moral slash Torah type
That's not their
block.
fault. That's not their fault. That's our fault.
Why is it our fault?
It says in Parker Avot, it says, "Who is the hero of heroes? He who makes an enemy into a friend." In other words, it's our job to bring them to us, not for us to conform with them. So tolerating a Christian in our midst, that's our fault. The only reason at least a religious Christian remains a religious Christian around Jews is because Jews don't open their mouth. I mean, that's the only reason. Not only do they not open their mouth, they push them away. So,
Yeah, but,
I mean, the purpose of Judaism and Torah was to make the world God-fearing and Torah observant. If not, it doesn't make any sense at all. It makes absolutely no sense, because then you're saying God has favorites, and then you're saying
I'm not saying necessarily that God has favorites. What I'm saying is that to be a religious person, right, in modern day world, you stick out like a sore thumb, and an uncomfortable sore thumb. It's not just that you're different.
but you're not
Is
going to
that to
stick
a certain
out.
extent is
Hold on.
insulting to certain people.
You're not going to stick out if there were more religious people. In other words, if there were more religious Jews, if we were busier encouraging people to become Jewish, which is all you need for them to basically say yes and run to it, you wouldn't feel uncomfortable, because ultimately there would be more of us
I
than
mean,
there are of
let's feel
them.
uncomfortable to the point is like you're constantly fighting a fight of you living in two worlds. You live in your head and in your heart and in your soul. You live this world of holiness that you want to pursue. And then every move you make, every step you take, there's this different type of society which you're bothered by because both the society and you are bothered if you think about it.
Within any movement, either you influence the society or the society is going to influence you. That's the purpose of remaining Jewish. In other words, making everyone around you Jewish, saying what's good for me is good for you. Why? Because it works. I'm sure every religious individual walks around thinking that their religion is superior, their lifestyle is superior. But suddenly,
Yeah.
Jews today are the only people who don't preach what they practice. In other
Right.
words, it makes no sense for a Jew to ever complain about the behavior of a non-Jew if he's not offering that non-Jew an alternative to their
Well,
belief system.
yeah, but most non-Jews, when they're offered an alternative, want to modify then the belief system they're coming into.
Well, that's not true.
It's like
That's
a
not true.
natural.
As a matter of
In
fact,
my experience.
most converts are more devout than the average born Jew. I mean, think about it. It's Jews who created Reform, Conservative, and Reconstructionist Judaism. It's not converts. It's always Jews. Pablo Cristiani was a born Jew who became Christian for whatever reason and took on Orthodox Judaism or traditional Judaism of the time. It's not converts. If I had to put my money on anyone in terms of expecting someone to remain religious and not change the status quo, within that religion, I put my money on converts. They have the most to lose. They've sacrificed the most. They're not gonna automatically change it now. Now, one can say, well, Asher Meza is a convert, and he's changing things. I'm just stripping away the excess so that the core is revealed. It's not that I'm adding anything new, at least for those who know better. So I understand your concern, and it should concern everyone who feels that Jews have no obligation to their non-Jewish brothers, and that obligation for sure is not offering them 7 archaic laws. It makes no sense to assume Jews' main goal in life is to survive. I mean, survival is not a virtue, and for sure in the Torah it's not. We have a task to do, and if we don't do that task, we slowly get eliminated. And then God raises up another group to take care of that task. We see that during the time of the Second Temple, God raised up converts to put Judaism back on track. Now, granted, they failed, but we see Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Akiva, Shemaiah Ve'Avtalion, Onkelos. These are all people who halakhically had the status of converts, and they're the ones trying to war against all the hypocrisy and all the sinas chinim, the baseless hatred that was all across Judaism. So our Talmudic fathers were basically all converts, and suddenly now converts are treated like crap. So this I blame completely on Kabbalah. And I'm not the only person who attacks the status quo nowadays. I think I'm the only person who has whittled it down to Kabbalah, because I think Judaism took a mystical nosedive, because suddenly you had a Jew departing from the message of Torah, which is to look outside oneself. What can I do to make this world better? How can I make the Gentile look at me and say, what a wise and discerning people, that I should join them? But Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism told you to look within yourself, to lock yourself in a room and retire into piety, to try to tap into the spiritual world and put spells on people, posted the Noah, all this nonsense.
No, but what I was thinking is the reason why Kabbalist thought and even my, isolationist thought comes through is because of sentiment that Israel has no autonomy right now. Like during all those rabbinic writings and during Torah and the Tanakh, you feel a Jewish autonomy, you know what I mean, where they're sovereign and they could govern themselves and they can make rulings amongst themselves. And it's like, we can't do that right now. It's annoying that you always have to ask some other power or worldly power, be it a nation or something, or make some type of apology for living out the instructions that God gave you. And to me, that just breaks my heart. It makes me want to go hide on the mountain, like you said.
Jews have never had it better than today. As a matter of fact, I would say almost a vast majority of the world wants to join us. And then the other half would join us if we just laid our case out before them, our biblical case, our Torah case, our ethical mandate. But anyways, we have a Jewish state. I mean, a state that they consider Jewish, but could be used as a platform to sensitize the world with Torah ethics. The reason Jews are suffering today is because of Jews. And that's really the reason Jews have suffered throughout history. I really don't understand why anyone would convert to Judaism with the Judaism that's taught to them from the pulpit, from the synagogues nowadays, or why anyone would convert to Judaism, to Rabbi Mizrahi Judaism, or Rabbi Dror Judaism, or Breslov, or Chabad type Judaism, because it makes no sense. I mean, it has no purpose. If you're not trying to physically improve this world by the only way we know how, which is the method that transformed our lives, which is accepting Torah and getting people to be individually morally trained, then what are you doing then? I mean, what are you doing as a Jew? I mean, what do you do? There's no purpose to anything.
Well, and many people see Judaism as a relationship between them and God, with them finding a way of interacting with the divine.
Well, that's completely narcissistic then. I mean, I don't think that's why God developed Judaism. In Torah, God never speaks to an individual. In other words, that we see him talking to Abraham, but saying that I've chosen you because I know that you will lead those who come after you in his ways. God never enforces this idea of a personal relationship with God. It's all about the big picture with God, making this world better. Now, of course, being religious alone really doesn't mean anything, because repairing this world is a team effort. I mean, that's the whole purpose of the Jewish people. I mean, this is why it's a global calling. It's always been a global calling. I mean, this notion of people retiring to piety I mean, I've seen these Kabbalists in synagogues, the way they pray. They jump up and down. I mean, it's like it's only them and God. And if you turn to your neighbor and talk to him, I mean, they'll yell at you and say, shh, shh. I mean, these people are nuts. I mean, this is not normal. This is not the way it's supposed to be. I mean, I love going to synagogues, hearing people talk, seeing kids run around, people congregating. And I think it's kind of crazy, all the frummies in the synagogue trying to shush everyone. Oh, I'm talking to God. I mean, first of all, this whole approach to prayer is a very new thing. We know that synagogues were developed when Jews were in Bavel, and it was really developed to keep Jews together, to congregate, right? I mean, Beit Knesset, a house of congregating.
Communal house.
Right, it's a house to congregate within, not necessarily a house to talk to God. Now, some could say it's a Beit Tefillah, whatever, but it seems that God cares more about how we treat each other than ultimately how we treat Him. However, it's a catch-22. If we disregard His instructions, we won't be able to treat ourselves or Him well. Judaism needs a lot of help nowadays. This is why the Jewish outreach, and I worked for Jewish outreach for many years, and I've seen the way that they instructed us to reach out to born Jews. We basically go into campuses and we ask everyone, are you Jewish? Are you Jewish? Are you Jewish? And then if they say, yeah, they're not told to confront sin. They're not told about some global mission to make the world better. No. The way they get Jewish kids to become religious is by putting them through a guilt trip. It's like telling them that you owe this to your grandparents. Or they'll bagel them up and they'll make jokes about Cholent and Jewish history, but they'll never mention an ethical purpose in the world. Now, even these rabbis online, when they're trying to encourage someone to be Jewish, they're trying to put fear into their lives. They're trying to make them religious by making them scared, by telling them that if you don't keep Shabbos, your kids are going to come out with Down syndrome or something nonsensical like that. This is not the way you keep people religious, which is why I think that probably more than half of anyone who becomes Shomer Shabbat, Shomer Kashrut, where they end up dropping it. Because of that, because there's no roots there. There's no ethical roots. I think that humans need that, which is why, as much as I attack Chabad Lubavitch give their students purpose in life because they give them some sort of goal, this goal to bring Mashiach now. Even though ultimately, I could argue why this notion of Mashiach now is ethically nonsensical. Hey, you know what? It's better than just survival. But just telling every Jew in the street that the best thing you could do is marry Jewish, right? It's just stupid. It doesn't make any sense. And this is why we're not growing. I think that everyone should embrace a Torah lifestyle, and like that, there'll be more kosher restaurants, more people for your kids to marry, and we could finally enjoy peace. Peace is the greatest ends.
But it seems that even though you state that's the mandate throughout history, the Jewish people always have remained the minority, even when they were proselytizing.
Don't forget, we're in exile. The reason we're in exile was because we weren't doing what we're supposed to be doing in the land, so that we were able to do whatever we wanted to do. The Jews, after the exile, started off on the right foot. 10% of the Roman Empire had embraced Judaism, and they were going and they were trying. And then all these movements started to arise that began to diminish with that flame in Judaism. I mean, mysticism really didn't begin with the Kabbalah. It began with other books, Sefer Yetzirah. I mean, all these nonsensical ideas of viewing the world not between the decent and the indecent, but between the Jew and the non-Jew. This is evident in the Talmud. Only because something's in the Talmud, it doesn't automatically mean that it's divinely inspired and sanctified. There's a lot of silly ideas in there as well. It's why the Rambam, but we see him excluding the reasons from many of the halachas that appear in the Talmud because he considered them pagan in origin. All these ideas just became solidified with the writing of the Zohar. It officially entered Judaism then. But, yeah, go ahead.
What would possess these great men to take these rulings or to have these views that, to your view, are nonsensical? These great men, these wise men, these great scholars, why would they come to these conclusions? They read the basic narrative of the Torah. They learned, they had continuous transmission from teacher to student, all the way back from Moshe Rabbeinu, either directly from their teacher or their teacher learned from one of the teachers who were in the main line of transmission.
Practical law was transmitted. Ethics always permeated the Jewish community because we had the Torah. Ethics wasn't transmitted. We don't need to transmit ethics because that appears in the Torah. We have to realize, as great as these individuals were, The temple was destroyed on their watch, and Israel was exiled under their watch. So they were clearly doing something wrong, or they weren't doing the right thing enough. So this notion that these guys can't do any wrong and everything they say has to be elevated and sanctified is an idea that has to be rethought. We have to go back to the Torah. And regarding these individuals and what they say and write, we have to nitpick and separate what's applicable and what's not. I mean, this is why with this notion that, I mean, someone wears a black hat because their Rebbe wore a black hat and because their Rebbe did this and their Rebbe did this. If everyone did such a thing by definition, we'd never improve because you're just emulating the previous generations that also didn't bring the Gula, didn't bring the redemption. So the definition of insanity, right? I mean, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. This is why, like, I'm against this uber venerating of rabbis, and we have to weigh each one out and take the good and separate the bad.
So how do we move forward in the culture? As far as you say that we have to progress, where are we allowed to progress? Where is it, for example?
It's very easy. It's very easy. We have to start caring about other people. That's it. Once the Jewish people actually begin caring about other people, the vast majority of our problems will disappear. Jews don't care about other people.
You do realize a lot of these other people are anti-Semites and hate religion in a whole, and Judaism.
Well, can you blame
particularly?
Them? They don't know any better. If we really have the truth, we should be able to sensitize them with Torah ideas.
I noticed that, the second anybody finds out anything particularly Jewish about anyone, or if you're non-religious, it's almost like they don't care, but if somebody finds out maybe you're a non-Jew pursuing Judaism, not because you told them, but because they ran into something on your Facebook, or they caught some reading material on your phone or something like that, there's an immediate bad taste in their mouth, an immediate disgust. And a lot of it has to do with them anticipating that you drop JC. And some of it is not because you drop JC. They just have all these taboos in their head about Jewry and as a whole. Jewry and as a whole. Jewry and